The House will be in order. The first order of business is roll call. The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will record their presence. Has every member recorded their presence? Representative Anderst is here. Representative Boyle is here. The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 63 present, 7 absent excused, a quorum being present. The House is ready for business. The second order of business is prayer by the chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Today, the prayer will be led by House Pastor Tom Doherty, and the pledge will be led by House Page Andrea Prigge. Will the guests in the gallery please rise?
Passage of Scripture today is from Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable in the perfect will of God. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, you have given us another great day to come together to do the business of our state. I pray that you would be with our representatives and staff today as they go about their business. Grant them great understanding of the issues that are before them. Give them wisdom and direction in the tough issues they must deal with. Lord, help us to have minds that are renewed and that we can think clearly about the issues of life we deal with. I pray we too would do what is good and what is acceptable in your sight. I recognize, O Lord, that sometimes choices are not easy, and sometimes on the outside things seem right. But Lord, help us to see clearly what is right and make the very best decisions possible. Be with each committee today and with all that lead these committees. Help them to work together and listen carefully to the ideas of others and direct their decisions. It is another blessed day to live on this great earth that you created. Please encourage and lead these fine people. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The House will now advance to the third order of business, approval of the journal. The House is at the third order.
March 11th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have read and approved the House Journal of the 61st Legislative Day and recommend same be adopted as corrected. Moved by Wills, seconded by Burgoyne.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries and the report is adopted. The House will now advance to the fourth order of business, consideration of messages from the Governor and the Senate. The House is at the fourth order.
From the Office of the Governor, March 8th, 2013. Dear Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to advise you that I have signed today and am transmitting to the Secretary of State the following House bill to wit, House Bill 72. As always, C.L. Butch Otter, Governor of Idaho. March 8th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I transmit herewith enrolled Senate Bills 1031, 1101, 1102, 1103, 1104, 1001, 1003 as amended, 1004, and 1027 for the signature of the Speaker. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
Senate Bills 1031, 1101, 1102, 1103, 1104, Senate Bill 1001, Senate Bill 1003 as amended, 1004, and Senate Bill 1027 will be signed by the Speaker and returned to the Senate.
From the Senate, March 8th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I return herewith enrolled House Bill 10, 153, 109, 163, and 203, which have been signed by the President. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
House Bill 10. House Bill 10, 153, 1009, 163, and 203 will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for delivery to the Governor.
From the Senate, March 7th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I transmit herewith Senate Concurrent Resolution 120, 1029, 1078, 1119, 1122, 1116 as amended, 1068 as amended, 1107 as amended, 1128, 1129, 1130, 1131, and 1132, which have passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 120, Senate Bills 1029, 1078, 1119, 1122, 1116 is amended, 1068 is amended, 1107 is amended, 1128, 1129, 1130, 1131, and Senate Bill 1132 will all be filed for the first reading.
From the Senate, March 8, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I transmit herewith Senate Bills 1139, 1140, 1143, 1144, 1021, 1111, which have passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
Senate Bills 1139, 1140, 1143, 1144, 1021, and 1111 will be filed for the first reading.
From the Senate, March 7, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I return herewith House Bills 112, 210, 131, 103, 96, and 175, which have passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
House Bills 112, 210, 131, 103, 96, and 175 will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for enrolling.
From the Senate, March 8, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I return here with House Concurrent Resolution 16, 6, 10, and 8, House Bills 168, 169, and 139, which have passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
House Concurrent Resolutions 16, 6, 10, and 8, as well as House Bills 168, 169, and 139 will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for enrolling.
From the Senate, March 7, 2013. Mr. Speaker, I return herewith House Bill 177 as amended in the Senate, which has passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
House Bill 177 as amended in the Senate will be held at the desk.
Who's ready? Just ask.
Good gentleman from District 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 177, for which I was a sponsor, has been returned to from the Senate with amendments, and would ask unanimous consent that the House concur in the amendments to House Bill 177. If I might explain.
The gentleman, from the look of some of the faces, the gentleman needs to explain.
All right, thank you,
the
Mr.
amendments,
Speaker.
Please.
House Bill 177 was the bill from the Treasurer's Office to provide the more flexibility in the 529 college program for managing that program, and a small amendment was made to make it clear that the board was not a depository itself for the funds, and that it would simply be managing the depositories, and so that was the extent of the change.
The gentleman from District 15 has asked for your unanimous consent to concur in the Senate amendments to House Bill 177. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the House does now concur in those Senate amendments. Good lady from District 35.
For personal privilege, Mr.
The good lady
Speaker.
has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the gallery are the parents of Cliff Baer, and Dieter, his father, served with me when I first came to the legislature. So would you welcome him back to the legislature and tell him thank you for sending a son also?
Sending the son to the Senate? Welcome back, Representative Baer. Good lady from District 33.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of personal privilege.
The good lady has the floor.
I would like to welcome a study group from Idaho Falls with us today, if you could help me in welcoming them. Thank you.
The House will now advance to the fifth order of business, report of standing committees. The House is at the fifth order.
March 11, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have printed House Concurrent Resolution 21, 22, 23, and 24, and House Bills 273, 274, and 275. Will's chairman.
House concurrent resolutions 21 and 22 will be referred to the State Affairs Committee. House concurrent resolutions 23 and 24 will be filed for second reading. House Bill 273 will be referred to the Transportation Committee. House Bill 274 will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee. House Bill 275 will be referred to the Education Committee.
March 11th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have enrolled House Concurrent Resolution 7? Will's chairman.
House concurrent resolution number 7 will be signed by the Speaker and returned to the Senate for the signature of the President.
March 11th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have transmitted enrolled House Bills 137, 93, 128, 129, and 132 to the Governor at 8:51 a.m. as of this date, March 11th, 2013. Will's chairman. March 11th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have transmitted enrolled House Concurrent Resolution 5 to the Secretary of State at 8:47 a.m. as of this date, March 8th, 2013. Will's chairman. March 8th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Education report that we have had under consideration House Bills 259 and 260 and recommend that they do pass? DeMordaunt, chairman.
House Bills 259 and 260 will be filed for the second reading.
March 11th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on State Affairs report that we have had under consideration House Bills 245 and 257 and recommend that they do pass? Lurcher, chairman.
House Bills 245 and 257 will be filed for the second reading.
March 11th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Education report that we have had under consideration House Bill 261 and Senate Bills 1093 and 1097 as amended and recommend that they do pass? DeMordaunt, chairman.
House Bill 261, Senate Bill 1093, and Senate Bill 1097 as amended will be filed for the second reading. Without objection, the House will now advance to the seventh order of business, motions, memorials, and resolutions. The House is at the seventh order.
In the House of Representatives, House Concurrent Resolution Number 25 by State Affairs Committee, a concurrent resolution stating findings of the legislature and recognizing and congratulating Owyhee County and its residents for the county's sesquicentennial anniversary. House Joint Memorial Number 2 by State Affairs Committee, a joint memorial to the Chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, to the congressional delegation representing the state of Idaho in the Congress of the United States. House Concurrent Resolution Number 26 by State Affairs Committee, a concurrent resolution stating findings of the legislature and authorizing Legislative Council to appoint a committee to undertake and complete a study of potential approaches to public defense reform.
House Concurrent Resolution 25, House Joint Memorial Number 2, and House Concurrent Resolution Number 26 will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for printing.
In the Senate, Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 120 by Judiciary and Rules Committee, a concurrent resolution stating findings of the legislature and commending the Boise School District for its 2013 Red Light Award of Excellence. Read Light Award of Excellence. Its continuing commitment to the Read Right program and its focus on the success of Boise students.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 120 will be referred to the Education Committee. The House will now advance to the eighth order of business, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the eighth order.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill Number 276 by Revenue and Taxation Committee, an act relating to personal property tax, amending Section 63201 Idaho Code to revise definitions, amending Chapter 4, Title 63 by the addition of a new Section 63-412 to establish provisions relating to total operating property value that represents personal property, to provide that the State Tax Commission will compute an amount of operating property value exempt from certain taxation, to provide that an amount of value shall be certified to each county by the State Tax Commission, to provide that certain provisions shall not be applied to certain companies, and to establish additional provisions relating to companies, amending Section 63-602, 802, 63802 to revise provisions relating to the dollar amount of property taxes certified for annual budget to provide that any amount of reimbursement computed must be subtracted from the amount otherwise to be levied for certain funds and to make technical corrections, amending Chapter 10, Title 63, by the addition of a new Section 63802B to provide for exceptions to establish provisions relating to the State Tax Commission, determining the amount of tax on personal property, certifying such amount to, and certifying the amount eligible for reimbursement, to establish provisions relating to an adjustment, to establish provisions relating to certain tax years that a portion of the amount certified shall be reimbursed and subtracted, to provide that a certain tax year and every tax year thereafter, all of the amount certified shall be reimbursed and subtracted, to provide that a separate amount will be determined for certain levies and for certain other funds, to provide that no revenue allocation area of an urban renewal district established after a certain date shall be eligible for reimbursement monies, to provide that no taxing district established on or after a certain date shall be eligible for certain reimbursement monies, to establish provisions relating to consolidations and dissolutions, to establish provisions relating to certain reimbursement, to establish provisions relating to monies received from the distributions, and to provide that no reimbursement shall be calculated for certain property, amending Section 63803 and amending Section 63803 Idaho Code as added by Section 13, Chapter 339, Laws of 2012, to provide that after receipt of a certification, the county commissioner shall make a tax levy, and by taking approved certified amount required from property tax as a percent of the taxable value of all property in the taxing district, to establish provisions relating to taxable value and to revise exceptions, amending Section 633638 to revise provisions relating to distributions of sales tax, to provide a correct code reference and to make technical corrections, declaring an emergency, providing retroactive application, and providing effective dates. House Bill Number 277 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to irrigation and drainage, amending Section 42-238 Idaho Code to provide additional requirements relating to well construction standards and to make technical corrections. House Bill Number 278 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to fish and game, amending Section 36-111 Idaho Code to provide that certain money shall be earmarked for sportsman access programs and to remove a condition relating to legislative intent, and amending Section 36-115 to revise provisions relating to the transfer and use of certain monies from the Expendable Big Game Depredation Fund. House Bill Number 279 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to registrations, amending Section 49402 Idaho Code to revise registration provisions relating to certain vehicles and to provide for the registration of certain non-resident vehicles pursuant to the specified laws, amending Section 426 Idaho Code to provide that certain vehicles not need to be registered under specified conditions, amending Section 49504 and amending Section 67708 to provide that certain certificates of title or evidence of prior registration shall be sufficient evidence of ownership for registration, to authorize the Department of Parks and Recreation to share registration information with the Idaho Transportation Department and to make technical corrections, amending Section 67, 7103, 7104, 7122, and 7123 to provide that certain certificates of title shall be sufficient evidence of ownership for registration, and to authorize the Department of Parks and Recreation to share registration information with the Idaho Transportation Department. House Bill Number 280 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to firearms, explosives, and other deadly weapons, providing legislative declaration, amending Section 183315A to revise and to establish additional provisions relating to the prohibition of federal regulation of certain firearms, providing severability and declaring an emergency. House Bill Number 281 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to the election of city councilmen, amending Section 707A Idaho Code to require certain cities to establish districts and to provide for the election of councilmen by districts, to provide time requirements, to revise precinct provisions, to revise verbiage, to provide for split precincts, to provide for the reapportionment of districts, to revise provisions relating to the determination of process of election, to revise provisions relating to the method of implementation of certain ordinances consistent with specified law, to provide that certain cities shall elect councilmen by district and determine the method of implementation of election by districts consistent with specified law, to provide for staggered terms, shorter initial terms, or at-large representation and district vacancies, and to make a technical correction. House Bill Number 282 by Education Committee, an act relating to the State Board of Education, amending Chapter 1, Title 33 Idaho Code by the addition of new Section 33107D to establish provisions relating to certain authority and to responsibility of the State Board of Education. House Bill Number 283 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Department of Health and Welfare for the Division of Child Welfare and Developmentally Disabled Services for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions, providing for general fund transfers to the Cooperative Welfare Fund, directing expenditures for trustee and benefit payments, providing legislative intent for the program integrity, and providing guidance for employee compensation. House Bill Number 284 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Office of Drug Policy for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation. House Bill Number 285 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Commission on Aging for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation.
Mr. Speaker.
One minute. Let me assign these bills, and then we'll come back. Unless your request has to do with this bill that I'm about to sign.
It does not, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. House Bills 276, 277, 278, 279, 280, 281, 282, 283, 284, and 285 will all be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for printing. The gentleman from District 14.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rise for point of personal privilege, please.
The gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The group from Idaho Falls has already been welcomed, but I would like to specifically highlight my parents who are here with us today as part of this illustrious delegation, and as well as the gentleman that I was named after. I'm not sure that he would claim me, but he certainly is a fine gentleman and would welcome all of them, but specifically my parents to the body as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Welcome to the gallery. The clerk may read.
From the Senate, Senate Bill Number 1029 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to codifiers corrections, amending 16 sections of Idaho Code in titles 23, 33, 39, 47, 48, 54, 59, and 65 to make technical corrections, to revise terminology, and to provide correct terminology. Senate Bill Number 1078 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to public post-secondary educational institutions, amending Chapter 1, Title 33 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 33, 1007D, to provide that state post-secondary education institutions shall take any action or enforce any policy that would deny a religious student group any benefit available to any other student group based on the religious student group's requirement that its leaders adhere to its sincerely held religious beliefs or standards of conduct, and to define terms. Senate Bill Number 1119 by Judiciary and Rules Committee, an act relating to mandatory income withholding for child support, amending Section 32, 1206 Idaho Code to provide that income withholding orders use a certain form and to provide that income withholding payments by employers be remitted to the Department of Health and Welfare, and amending Section 32, 1210 to provide that income withholding payments by employers be remitted to the Department of Health and Welfare. Senate Bill Number 1122 by Judiciary and Rules Committee, an act relating to child custody, amending Chapter 7, Title 33 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 32702 to provide procedure for the court in event a petition for modification of child custody order is filed, where the action may be subject to the Service Members Civil Relief Act, to provide that under certain circumstances the court may only enter an order or decree temporarily modifying the existing child custody order during a period of deployment, to provide for expiration of the order of decree, to provide for expedited or emergency hearings, for the extension of temporary orders, for temporary orders granting deployed parents reasonable contact with the child, to provide for expedited hearings relating to petitions to modify, to provide for the presentation of testimony and evidence by electronic means under certain conditions, and to define terms. Senate Bill Number 1116, as amended by Judiciary and Rules Committee, an act relating to organ donor notification, amending Section 393413 to define a term, to revise terminology, to provide that certain information regarding donors shall be given to the Idaho State Communication Center and organ procurement organizations, to provide a correct code reference, and to revise provisions relating to penalties. Senate Bill Number 1068, as amended by Commerce and Human Resources Committee, an act relating to the members of the armed services and their spouses, amending Section 672620 to allow for licensure, certification, or registration for service members and their spouses. Senate Bill Number 1107, as amended by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to revenue and taxation, amending Section 63308 Idaho Code to establish provisions relating to providing certain assessment notices electronically to the taxpayer. Senate Bill Number 1128 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the State Independent Living Council for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation. Senate Bill Number 1129 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Office of Species Conservation for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation. Senate Bill Number 1130 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Office of Energy Resources for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions, providing certain non-general fund reapportion for fiscal year 2014, and providing guidance for employee compensation. Senate Bill Number 1131 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Endowment Fund Investment Board for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions, providing a continuous appropriation for certain costs, expressing legislative intent regarding the transfer of monies from the earnings reserve funds to the income funds, and providing guidance for employee compensation. Senate Bill Number 1132 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Department of Fish and Game for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation. Senate Bill Number 1139 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the public health districts for fiscal year 2014 and providing guidance for employee compensation. Senate Bill Number 1140 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Department of Self-Governing Agencies for the medical boards for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation. Senate Bill Number 1143 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Division of Veterans Services for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation. Senate Bill Number 1144 by Finance Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Agricultural Research and Cooperative Extension Service for fiscal year 2014, providing guidance for employee compensation, exempting appropriation object transfer limitations, and providing non-general fund reapportionment for fiscal year 2014. Senate Bill Number 1021 by Health and Welfare Committee, an act relating to nurses, amending Section 541413 to grant the Executive Director of the Board of Nursing certain authority and to make a technical correction. Senate Bill Number 1111 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to the Condominium Property Act, amending Section 551505 Idaho Code to revise provisions relating to the allocation of percentage of ownership interest in a common area and to make technical corrections.
Senate Bill 1029 will be referred to the State Affairs Committee. Senate Bill 1078 will be referred to the Education Committee. Senate Bills 1119 and 1122 will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee. Senate Bills 1116 is amended, and Senate Bill 1021 will be referred to the Health and Welfare Committee. Senate Bill 1068 as amended will be referred to the Commerce and Human Resource Committee. Senate Bills 1107 as amended and 1111 will be referred to the Revenue and Taxation Committee. Senate Bills 1128, 1129, 1130, 1131, 1132, 1139, 1140, 1143, and 1144 will all be filed for the second reading. The House will now advance without objection to the 10th order of business, second reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 10th order.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill Number 269 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Department of Lands. House Bill 270 by Appropriations Committee regarding Appropriations, Department of Water Resources. House Bill 248 by Health and Welfare Committee regarding Health Insurance Exchange. Senate Bill 1034 by Judiciary and Rules Committee regarding county jails. Senate Bill 1035 by Judiciary and Rules Committee regarding county jails. And House Bill 38 by Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee regarding Comprehensive State Water Plan.
House Bill 269, 270, 248, Senate Bills 1034 and 1035, as well as House Bill 38 will be filed for the third reading. The House will now advance to the 11th order of business, third reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 11th order and will go at ease. She's coming up.
on your leadership and the ones that's got the bill. Evidently, it's
controversial bill or something.
I don't know, there must be some controversy on it.
Yeah, well, we need to think it through. So it's coming up on Wednesday, how we have to have our debate ready. Right. We gotta prepare our, are we gonna try and talk a whole hour? Yeah, yes.
Plenty of things to read that we've gotten in the mail.
I don't have any to lose. Yeah.
It's over, any more bills being printed having to go through Ways and Means. Got to be something to do with Andrews's bill, I think. Yeah, he's up there and Judy's up there, I don't know, and she's ag too. No, she isn't ag. It's
Patterson's bill.
Gail, well, it might be Patterson's bill. Patterson's bill 290. Royal's coming back down here.
Gonna do my bill.
What bill is that?
The first 208. I said, you don't have the ability to get that through this floor. You don't want to see you stumble and bumble and fall on your face.
The House will be in order.
Mr. Speaker.
Good gentleman from District 14.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of personal privilege and then a motion.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, the next bill up is House Bill 208, and there's still some discussion going on amongst our cattle friends and our Farm Bureau friends. And so I would ask unanimous consent that House Bill 208 hold its place on the third reading calendar one legislative day.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, so ordered. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 219. Good gentleman from District 15.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to have unanimous consent to dispense the readings of House Bill 219.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman is recognized to open the debate.
The state of Idaho, as part of its Idaho Constitution, has Article 1, Section 11, which is Idaho's Second Amendment per se. Article 1, Section 11 ties in solidly to House Bill 219, the last line in particular. Nor shall any law permit the confiscation of firearms except those actually used in commission of a felony. This legislation is to protect the Idaho law enforcement officers from being directed through federal orders, laws, rules, or regulations related to the promulgated on or after January 1st, 2013, to violate their oath of office. The Idaho citizens' rights under the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 11. The Constitution provides disallows confiscation of firearms except those actually used in commission of a felony, and disallows other restrictions on lawful citizens' rights to own firearms and ammunition. This law would be violated if Idaho law enforcement officers knowingly and willing participated in actions with purpose of confiscating firearms defined as legal under this legislation. Allow me to emphasize on that again, please. Knowingly and willingly participate with purpose of confiscating firearms defined as legal under this legislation. This would clearly not affect an Idaho law enforcement officer who assists federal agents on drug, gang, or similar related enforcement activities. The legislation also protects Idaho law enforcement officers from their supervisors ordering them to violate this statute. Supervisors doing so would be in violation of the law, and officers would not have to follow such orders. This bill protects all citizens of Idaho: citizen lawmakers, citizen police, citizen judges, and all citizens whom go about their daily life. With the clatter coming out of the nation's capital about drastic changes in our Second Amendment rights, the citizens of Idaho are very concerned about their constitutional rights. Idaho's citizen police are citizens themselves and have the very same concerns. In addition, they do not want to be forced to break their oath to the Idaho Constitution from top-down orders within their departments. House Bill 219 protects all of Idaho's citizen police so that they can serve with honor that they want and deserve to be able to do, and serving the people of Idaho as our citizen police. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude with that. I'd just like to ask if maybe we just can't unlock the machines and go right to voting. I'm sure nobody has any questions
Nice
or
try.
wants to debate this bill.
Is there further debate? Well, good gentleman from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good gentleman yield for a question?
Will the gentleman from District 15 yield to a question?
Mr. Speaker, the gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and good gentleman. I have some concerns about, and expressed by the peace officers in my district about their ability to collaborate in multi-jurisdictional, multi-level workforces, including those where they're cross-deputized. How would this affect their ability to cooperate with federal and other state officials in other states?
Gentleman from 15.
Mr. Speaker, gentleman from 6. Actually, it would not. What you're talking about is the memorandums of understanding. And memorandums of understanding are not law. They are the lowest form of agreements. They're just a little bit above a handshake. And the Supreme Court has ruled down MOUs is what they're called. They did so on the Brady Bill in Prince versus the United States, when the same type of orders were brought forth. So this would not affect MOUs. And if there was a problem with the MOUs, they need to be fixed and not a law that is fully constitutional.
Mr. Speaker.
Good gentleman from 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman, I was
Will the
not...
gentleman yield to another question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Will the gentleman yield?
Pardon me?
Will the good gentleman, will you yield to another question?
Yes, I will yield.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good gentleman. No, I was not referring to agreement, memorandum of understanding, but actual cross-deputization where there is an oath applied.
Gentleman from 15.
Mr. Speaker, gentleman from 6, please repeat that question again.
Will the gentleman repeat the question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And good gentleman, when someone is cross-deputized, they're sworn in as a deputy for the other jurisdiction. I see that as, and the peace officers at home see that as a particular issue with this piece of legislation.
Gentleman from 15.
Mr. Speaker, gentleman from 6, this does not affect their oath to the Constitution of Idaho.
Is there further debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good lady from District 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to debate against this legislation.
The lady
because
has the floor.
While I appreciate the intent of House Bill 219, in speaking with the Idaho State Police, there's an inherent flaw in the mechanism proposed here. And that flaw is that it actually would criminalize and threaten severe punishment in our Idaho State Police officers upholding their statutory oath, which reads that they take an oath of office to support the Constitution and laws of the United States and the state of Idaho, which is not the same as all of our officers in Idaho at city and county levels. So with that in mind, I find that an inherent flaw in this particular legislation, and I couldn't support its passage, but I could support it going to the amending order.
Is there further debate? Good lady from District 29.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent to read a brief paragraph from an AG opinion dated March 1st.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the lady may read from the AG opinion.
Thank you. This paragraph states, the proposed legislation could nullify any reciprocal law enforcement agreements between state and or local law enforcement entities and the federal law enforcement entities. For example, reciprocal agreements addressing gangs and drugs through law enforcement cooperation could be rejected by enactment of this legislation if they include seizure and forfeiture provisions. Similarly, future reciprocal agreements would likely be prohibited by this measure. I don't want to penalize our law enforcement by pitting the U.S. Marshals against Idaho law enforcement. Most of the United States Marshals that we have in Idaho did come from Idaho law enforcement. I did talk with the Bannock County Sheriff and got his opinion that he says he does not like to not cooperate with federal government. He doesn't see the federal government coming in to confiscate guns, and he is against 219 because this will cause damage. That I think mental health is our crisis, and I think we should all work together on this issue instead of this bill, so I urge your no vote on 219. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from District 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate against the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
This bill may be an example of the law of unintended consequences. And before going any further, I need to say that I think our law enforcement people are very, very important. They are one of my first priorities. In fact, at one time in my practice, I represented a couple of law enforcement groups. And I want to vote for bills that can be used to catch our worst criminals, not laws that may give them another defense. This bill has a wonderful purpose behind it because it does help our law enforcement officers in the field stay out of an issue that they really don't want to get involved in, and I don't blame them. But I think the bill, with a couple of amendments, could be much improved and something that I would enthusiastically vote for and something that would help all around. Criminal defense attorneys look for every nuance, every little way they can to get somebody off. They work very hard at that. And some of them, when in the higher profile cases, are paid a lot of money to find conflicts, to find reasons, to find any little nuance to help their client win. These are the concerns I have. In paragraph 16 through 17, it talks about any state official. And from the beginning, I've been concerned that that could mean a judge. The bill has the problem with joint task forces that have been mentioned by other speakers, and I'm not going to go into that. But it is a huge concern and might be something that a real sharp criminal defense attorney could use at some point to have an unintended consequence. The section on emergency says that it is retroactive till January 1st. But this is one thing I do know, and that is that you cannot make a criminal statute retroactive. That's a problem. It's probably not a serious problem. I talked about it with the sponsor because the sponsor points out that there were no laws, so this bill really doesn't have any application to anything that happened back to January 1st, and I understand that. But it does raise the question to me whether whether some of the other concerns, and I'm not saying they are, I haven't had time to study this bill exhaustively, but there are other concerns with the other provisions I mentioned. This bill could become a great bill and one I could support with a couple of simple amendments, especially one which took care of the joint task force issue that has been mentioned. I'm going to tell you I don't know, but I do know the Attorney General's office did give an opinion that there could be a problem, and I have no choice but to rely on that. If there's one thing I've learned here as a lawyer, I came in thinking I was going to read all these bills and I was going to make changes and figure it all out. Can't do it. It is mentally impossible. And so I have to rely on other people, other lawyers, other experts, and it gives me a great deal of concern if there is an opinion that says there is a problem with these joint task force. And so I would hope that the body would amend this bill and to take care of at least that problem, and that we would go forward together with a law that would really help our law enforcement people stay out of something they don't want to get involved in, and I fully understand why, and help us go forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Is there further debate? The gentleman from District 24.
Yeah. Would the good lady from 19 yield to a question?
Would the lady from District 19 yield to a question?
The lady yields.
The lady yields.
Thank you. During your debate, you made reference to the oath of office. I had questions regarding that, and I requested copies of the oath of office administered by our local police and our county sheriff. And it reads, "I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Idaho." It did not state the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the U.S. government. I'm trying to determine where you got your oath of office information.
Well, good gentleman, the lady is not required to answer that. She's not the bill sponsor.
Okay.
I think that maybe your point should be brought out in your debate.
Okay, all right. Then the point I'm trying to make in the debate is that I have information that says otherwise to the earlier debate. So thank you.
Her heart is certainly in the right place for yielding, but I think that that's maybe a point that is better brought up in debate.
All right.
Mr. Speaker, and gentleman from 24, I'm happy to yield to that question.
Well, lady has the floor.
The Idaho State...
Let's not get too far afield here.
No, and this I actually brought up in my debate. The Idaho State Police take a statutory oath, and this is in Title 67, Chapter 29, Section 5M of Idaho statute. And their statutory oath, which is different from the PATH oath taken by other law enforcement officers, states that they support the Constitution and laws of the United States.
Is there further debate? Good lady from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are several issues that I'd like to go over with members of the House on this bill. The oath of office, there are numerous ones of them. The sheriffs take an oath of office that's a little bit different from the post oath of office. And I did check with the ISP folks about their oath of office. Theirs says to support Constitution, as in singular. However, they told me that they believe that means both constitutions, the U.S. Constitution and the Idaho Constitution, and laws of the United States. Now, they also told me that the laws of the United States are the ones we allow them to enforce, and currently that is the Transportation Code. Making sense, since they're the ones that enforce all the transportation all the time. So they did not feel this is causing them to break their oath of office in the least. They also believe that they are to enforce the laws of Idaho, of course, and they have a new public relations person, and they said they were going to visit with them and try to make that very clear to the citizens of Idaho. All of our law enforcement people have no intention of helping the feds take lawful guns. And that is the purpose of this entire legislation, is to make it clear to the citizens of Idaho that our police officers are our partners. And this is also to protect them, so that if the federal government ever came to their superiors and said, you will do this, this gives them something to point to say, I cannot do this or I will be charged with a misdemeanor. Now, we also have a couple of other statutes on the books that pretty much say the same thing, but this says it much, much clearer. The AG's opinion, there's been a lot of questions about that. And so the good gentleman from 15 and I actually went and spoke to him about this because we wanted to be positive of what he really meant. Sometimes it's a little hard to read lawyerese. He told us this was an extremely favorable opinion for this bill and that we should hold this up as the reason to pass this law. And the main question seems to come, besides the fact that it's constitutional in his first part, his second one, he says that any of those MOUs should be carefully reviewed to be certain that there's nothing in there that would catch our law enforcement people unaware if there ever was a federal law saying go take lawful guns. So that he told us that's what that meant, was our law enforcement people should carefully review current MOUs and future MOUs. And the second part of his opinion was that if it ever came a time where this was challenged, that the state of Idaho would review the Supremacy Clause to be sure that we were appropriate. I wanted to review with all of you the Supremacy Clause. It says in our Constitution, our U.S. Constitution, that all the laws have to be constitutional. Sometimes there are laws that pass that are not constitutional, therefore they're not supreme. We have the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, and we have Article 1, Section 11 of the Idaho Constitution, which is very, very clear about the right to keep arms as long as you do it legally and you're not a convicted felon and you're not involved with gangs and drugs and all the other illegal things going on. It is the legal people we are trying to protect here and trying to protect our law enforcement people. The key in this is new laws, those that have not yet been passed and hopefully never will be passed. We're trying to do a preemptive strike. And the citizens of Idaho understand that, and I hope the members of our body will as well. I would urge you to pass this bill. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, would the good gentleman from District 15 care to close the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to read a letter here of support from the Fraternal Order of Police. That means...
Without objection?
Without objection?
Mr. Speaker.
Good gentleman.
I object to new material being introduced in the closure in violation of the rule.
That would be a violation. The introduction of new material in closing is against one of your rules. I mean, 22, 23, right in that part of your book.
Fair enough, Mr. Speaker.
But the gentleman can...
I won't go there. I will like to
close.
make one comment about this bill. This bill is about protecting police officers from prosecutors. It's not about protecting police officers from criminal defense attorneys. And this bill, retroactively back to January 1st, 2013, is what is legal in firearms under Article 1, Section 11 remains legal. So what's legal then always moves forward as legal. I would like to read my material. This bill, House Bill 219, is a bill that brings all of Idaho's citizens together for the common cause of our freedoms ensured to us under the Idaho Constitution. The citizen police have told me that they are very pleased that we are protecting them from having to be put in a position of breaking their own oath to uphold the Idaho Constitution. The citizens are pleased that they can feel safe that Idaho Citizen Police, commonly known and short as law enforcement officers, will not be kicking in their front doors to take their firearms. In doing so, all Idaho citizens can join hands knowing that this body hears and understands that Idaho citizens are all one citizen under the Idaho Constitution. This is something that must be done to ensure a peaceful, lawful, and constitutionally ensured Idaho is there for our children and our children's children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues.
Thank you, good gentlemen. The debate is closed. For the edification of the body, it's Rule 21. It says, among other things, during closing debate, no new material shall be interjected that was not referred to during the previous debate, etc. All of you take a look at that if you have questions. The debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 219 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows it's 55 aye, 13 nay, 2 absent excused. House Bill 219 has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 219 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 252. The gentleman from District 30.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of House Bill 252 be dispensed with.
You all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman is recognized to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 252 is the fiscal year 2014 appropriation for the Department of Insurance in the amount of $8,547,900, with full-time equivalent positions capped at 73. The Department of Insurance administers the Idaho Insurance Code and the International Fire Code. The department fulfills its mission and duties through 3 regulatory bureaus, an administrative group consisting of the Director's Office and supporting services. The Department of Insurance ongoing operations is funded by administering and collecting a tax assessed on all insurance premiums. This tax, collected from authorized insurers, is in lieu of all other state and local taxes, with the exception of real property tax per Section 41-405 Idaho Code. Any premium tax collection over 25% of the department's appropriation is transferred to the general fund. This appropriation provides for increased cost of benefits and statewide cost allocation. It also provides an increase to replace 3 trucks, 16 laptop computers, 20 desktop computers, 12 docking stations, 48 monitors, 5 printers, 25 chairs, 2 scanners, and 2 servers. Finally, this budget provides 3 line items. Line item number 1 provides 1 FTP and $76,500 for a new financial analyst. This new analyst position will be working in the Insurance Regulation Division. This position is needed for the department to manage self-funded plans registered and regulated under Title 41, Chapter 41 and 40, Chapter 40 and 41. The Department of Insurance now has 11 such plans registered, and it is expected this number will increase with a proposed law allowing certain post-secondary educational institutions to also self-fund student health plans. Line item 2 provides $257,500 for additional contract examiner cost. Contract examiners are responsible for national certification requirements for the department. Contract costs are increasingly significant because of the demand for these specialists. The department has the legal mandates per Code 41-219 to examine domestic insurers, the Surplus Lines Association, the Idaho Petroleum Trust, the Life and Health Guarantee Association, and the self-funded plans. To accomplish this, the department contracts with financial examiners. These examiners must hold a certified financial examiner CFE credential, which requires an accounting degree, passing a series of 8 tests, and having at least 3 years' experience working for a state Department of Insurance. This is a national market, not a local market, so the Department of Insurance competes against other states for qualified CFEs. Their rates are increasing per the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, or NAIC, survey of state payments. In addition, every 5 years, the department goes through an extensive review for continued accreditation by a committee of state regulators at the NAIC. The purpose of the accreditation process is to ensure that all states have proper procedures in place and the technical expertise to effectively monitor the solvency of its own domestic companies. The department contract examiners play a critical role in enabling the department to remain accredited and meet national standards. As an example, if the department cannot contract with and retain competent examiners, the department would likely lose their accreditation. If this were to happen, then other states in which Idaho domestics operate would not accept our examination reports and would be able to come in and examine our Idaho domestics rather than rely on Idaho's process and examination reports, therefore costing our domestic companies hundreds of thousands of dollars. Finally, line item 3 provides $10,600 for a SHEBA, which is Senior Health Insurance Benefits Advisor, call center. This call center has helped seniors during open enrollment during Medicaid Part A and Part D. The call center concept is being piloted on a temporary basis during fiscal year 2013 using existing federal grant funds and surplus equipment. This provides $7,500 in equipment purchases, which include telephones, headsets, chairs, computers, monitors, and office equipment for 3 volunteers, and $3,100 on ongoing operating costs. With the 3 line items, this budget is a 4.7% increase above fiscal year 2013 original appropriation. Mr. Speaker, I ask for your green light.
Good lady from District 11.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from 30 yield to a question?
Will the gentleman from District 30 yield to a question?
Mr. Speaker, gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good gentlemen. In reviewing the Idaho State Base Exchange Work Plan that was submitted to HHS, there are 31 tasks that have been assigned to the Department of Department of Insurance. And I just wonder if any portion of the appropriation goes towards the implementation or carrying out of any one of the 31 tasks.
Gentleman from 30.
Mr. Speaker, good lady, nothing in this budget pertains to what you're referring to.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from 30 yield to a question?
Will the gentleman yield?
Mr. Speaker, gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman, on line 28 and 29 of this bill, we read that the governor, the gentleman on the second floor may specifically authorize an increase in the number of employees. Can you tell me why we give the gentleman on the second floor carte blanche to determine the number of employees?
Gentleman from 30.
Mr. Speaker, good gentleman, to my knowledge, that is for the good gentleman on the second floor to have flexibility in his budget.
Mr. Speaker, would the gentleman yield further for one follow-up?
Will the gentleman yield further?
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman, despite what you said earlier, is it not possible that the flexibility necessary for the gentleman on the second floor to add employees would be to deal with requirements from the federal HHS requiring rules and regulations for our state exchange?
Gentleman from 30.
Mr. Speaker, good gentlemen. To answer your question, I want to refer, if I may, Mr. Speaker, to an executive order.
Without objection. Gentleman may read.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, the Governor signed Executive Order 2011-03, and it says he's directing every executive branch, department, agency, and institution of the state as follows. No executive branch, department, agency, or institution or employee shall establish, amend any program, promulgating any rule to implement any provisions of PPACA. Shall not enter into any agreement or obligation to implement any provisions of it. Should not provide any assistance or resources of any kind to any agency, employee, or agent, federal government to implement and enforce PPACA. Shall not accept or expand any funds to implement provisions of PPACA.
Is there further debate?
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield one further?
Will
He
the
has
gentleman
raised yet
yield?
another issue.
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman, doesn't that executive order not also have the proviso that any changes to that mandate must be approved by the good gentleman on the second floor?
Gentleman from 30.
Mr. Speaker, good gentlemen, I do not see that in this executive order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from 30 yield to a question?
Gentleman yield.
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman from 30. Looking at the statement of purpose, it says that the budget for replacement item includes three trucks. What do they use trucks for in the Department of Insurance?
Gentleman from 30.
Mr. Speaker, good gentlemen, these vehicles are used as auditors go throughout the state conducting these audits so that we may be certified to continue the good work for the people of Idaho.
Is there further debate?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And good gentlemen, since I guess you're carrying the budget, and maybe in the future, might want to be able to communicate back to the department that when we're looking for efficiencies in state government, I don't know that a truck actually gets very good gas mileage. So if they're doing audits around the state, maybe they ought to look at when they're replacing these vehicles, getting into a car that gets a little bit better gas mileage. So I'll be voting against this appropriation.
So further debate. Good lady from District 25.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fire safety, the fire marshal for the state. If you're going to do some alterations and repairs in state buildings, they're going to come out and make sure that you're safe. And I'm assuming that those are the people who use, I can't imagine the gentleman running the agency out there in a truck. I'm pretty sure it's the fire safety. And also, while I'm on my feet, we're not here very long. It may seem long to you, but 90 days does not keep a state running sometimes. The gentleman on the second floor has always had the authority, and he sends a letter out. We put a cap on all employees, and he always lets us know why he's added employees and what the situation was. And finally, there was no mention of an exchange in this budget. I understand that there will have to be doing some flat fees should that come about. And obviously the companies, insurance companies, pay to work in this state, and it's a safety issue for all of us who have insurance. And that would be the area, I would assume, the agents who want to do insurance business in this state would continue to pay for that privilege. So with that, Mr. Speaker, this is just an agency, runs on dedicated funds. It keeps you safe when you buy insurance. You know you're not getting taken down the road on something that isn't legal. So with that, I'd ask for your support for this budget.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good lady from District 25 yield to a question?
Will the lady yield?
I would.
Thank you, good lady. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, good lady. It's my understanding that the Department of Insurance has produced a plan to the Department of Health and Human Services with respect to the exchange. there are specific items in that plan that the Department of Insurance will be doing. And I'm just wondering if the good lady knows how that will be paid for if this budget is not making provision for that.
Lady from 25.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the time this budget was set, and for this year, there was no reason, there were no provisions in this budget to pay for anything in a plan that may or may not come forth. And again, as I repeat, this agency runs on fees. So an enlargement of activity would have to obviously be fee-driven.
Thank you, good lady. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further debate. Good lady from District 35.
Would the gentleman from 30 yield to a question?
Would the gentleman from District 30 yield?
Gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker and gentlemen, I'm either not following or reading well, and I just was curious about, it said their number of full-time positions is 73. Is that an increase in positions?
Gentleman from 30.
Mr. Speaker, good lady, that is an increase of one position, which is the new financial analyst. That's in line 1.
Okay, thank you.
Further debate. Good gentleman from District 22.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with the good gentleman from 30 yield to a
Will
question.
the gentleman yield?
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And good gentleman, you have the line item for the call center as a pilot program. Can you tell me the justification and the need for a call center? What brought this line item about?
Gentleman from 30.
Mr. Speaker, good gentleman, there was a need to help seniors during that open enrollment of Medicare, and as stated, this is a pilot program to see the development and to see the actual value as we move forward. There was a need for it, and we want to measure the value of it.
Further debate.
Follow up, Mr. Speaker.
Will the gentleman yield further?
Gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Good gentleman, $10,600. How many employees does that pay for to actually man the phones in a call center? It seems like an awful small amount that the call center would actually only be open for a short period of time. Could you clarify that?
Gentleman for 30.
Mr. Speaker, good gentleman, I do not have that specific information in front of me. I'll be more than glad to get that for you.
Thank you.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I may take a whack at that question.
The gentleman certainly is recognized to debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's probably a better way to do it.
That is probably a better way.
The SHIBA is a volunteer program. The senior health insurance benefit advisors throughout the state. These are retirees who help other seniors understand the intricacies of Medicare Part D, Medicare Advantage, and supplemental plans. This is not an employed workforce.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, would the gentleman from, good lady from District 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition to the appropriation, having
The good lady has the floor.
Oh, okay, thank you. Anyway, listening to the debate, obviously there are many people who have some of the same concerns I do. I'm not a trusting person at this moment, and we always have to be reminded that the devil is in the details. I'm not sure we have details, but I think I do smell a little brimstone, so I will oppose the bill.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the good gentleman from District 30 is recognized to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and good ladies and gentlemen, I don't see a fire or smoke or any brimstone. This is a budget that's straightforward, that will bring one additional employee in to help monitor self-funded plans. This brings about additional funds that are required through National Association of Insurance Commissioners so that we can be competitive on these examiners that we need. Their services are so very needed across the country, and there's very few numbers of them. And we need this so that we continue to have our certification, so that our department can continue to examine the industry in our state, and so that they can be respected from a nationwide perspective. Mr. Speaker, I ask for your green light.
The debate is closed. The question before the House is, shall House Bill 252 pass? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 42 aye, 26 nay, 2 absent, excused. House Bill 252 has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 252 will be transmitted to the Senate. The gentleman from District 14.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House recess until the hour of 1:30.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Before placing the motion, I would remind the chairs, the vice chairs, and the minority that we'll have a chairman's meeting upon recess. You've all heard the motion to recess until the hour of 1:30. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the House stands recessed until the hour of 1:30 p.m.
Yeah, okay.
Welcome to Idaho in Session, Legislature Live, the House channel. Idaho in Session is sponsored by the Idaho State Broadcasters Association, the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Foundation, Union Pacific Foundation, Idaho Association of Counties, Idaho Cable Telecommunications Association, Association of Idaho Cities, and your contributions to the Idaho Public Television Endowment.